Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 29, selecting quality criteria for a qualitative study. This is the content of my presentation. So let's get started. The skill of choosing your standard for assessing the quality of your qualitative project and why it's important. Certainly, not all qualitative researchers are in agreement about the use of qualitative standards or even whether there should be standards applied widely across qualitative research. Qualitative research represents a heterogeneity of practices in the diverse community. What expectations to behold for high quality qualitative work? Some answers to this question appear in this chapter, and the answers reflect multiple views from those taking a data interpretation stance, a qualitative validity stance, and a rigor and transparency stance. In the end, we must each identify how we judge the quality of a qualitative work, and we come at it from our own philosophies, work experience, and disciplines. So, are standards important in qualitative research? Different answers exist in the large qualitative community in the United States and around the world. The conventional view in qualitative research holds that the use of standards limits creativity and it's difficult to achieve because of diversity of approaches within the qualitative community. This diversity exists in theoretical orientations, methodological aims, the philosophical differences. So, Freeman et al. 2007 wrote that quality standards are neither desirable nor possible from a consensus standpoint. Still, others would agree that from a practical standpoint, standards are important and are in wide use. Some qualitative books end with lists of questions that could be reviewed to determine a high standard qualitative study. Even those unwilling to talk about standards or quality indicators often take suggestions as to what to include and what not to include in a qualitative report. The practice of qualitative research requires that some standards are applied, such as during the process of journal manuscript review, the assessment of an application for federal funding, the review of a qualitative book prospectus, and the assessment of students' project. Standards are being used. Some perspectives on the standard questions. Despite many different approaches and traditions within qualitative and evaluative research, there are widespread concerns about the quality. There is also shared interest in issues such as rigor, we need for principles of practice to be made manifest, the importance of sound or robust qualitative research evidence, and in the relevance and utility of research. In the book after book, a report after report, authors have advanced different perspectives on the use of quality standards in qualitative research. An eye-opening experience was to view the Robert Wood Johnson's Foundation's Qualitative Research Guidelines Project. This is the website, which is developed by Cohen and Crabtree in 2008. In this project, the authors talk about the criteria for rigorous qualitative research. They first acknowledge that one's epistemological standpoint or research paradigm shapes how one views good research, and that a broad range of criteria exist. They emphatically don't commit to a particular set of criteria and proceed to identify certain different studies, suggesting diverse perspectives on the criteria for a rigorous qualitative study. In this chapter, we'll not attempt to summarize all of the perspectives, but here we'll highlight studies and provide different perspectives. Common concerns about standards. Several educators have written about the lack of consensus in standards and the diversity of the qualitative community that will discourage consensus building. At the same time, they say that qualitative researchers have accomplished high-quality studies and have demonstrated quality in their reports. They suggest that discussions of quality come from studying what researchers say they are doing and then encouraging excellence in the research. The common ground for qualitative researchers has been the use of theory and validity. Quality also comes from data and the evidence with those they study in their analysis, interpretations, and representations of data. Researchers also make claims, statements that connect the data with interpretation of those data. In the end, they don't advocate for a set of standards, but discuss common concerns that have shaped the dialogue and debate on the issue of quality. Standards based on guidelines from the American Psychological Association. In 2015, the American Psychological Association convened the 7-member working group to develop GARS for qualitative research. These standards provide useful guidelines for what information at the minimum should be reported in journal articles. It was a historic moment, for up to the time only qualitative standards had been reported in the publication manual of the American Psychological Association. These standards were not meant to prescribe how to design or execute a qualitative study, but to provide general guidelines for authors and reviewers of qualitative publications. These guidelines were directed toward authors seeking publications and for both undergraduate and graduate students. The working group published the qualitative and the mixed methods standards first in American Psychologist, and then it was included in the most recent APA-style manual. The table of standards can be found at the website, and this table takes each component of research article and details recommendations for writing qualitative information into each section. These standards provide a valuable resource of quality standards for the qualitative researcher. Next is standards based on validity. In many discussions, the standard of quality discussed for qualitative research on the question of the validity or the trustworthiness of inferences drawn from data. Validity certainly has a role in qualitative research, but whether in the central, perhaps only feature of the standards to be used in qualitative standards might be questioned. Lincoln and Guba used parallel terms for the quality of data analysis and interpretations, such as trustworthiness, credibility, transferability, verisimilitude, relevance, plausibility, and confirmability. In an informative discussion about quality standards, Cookart discussed quality using parallel ideas to internal and external validity, internal quality and external quality. Internal quality refers to the procedures used in data collection and analysis, whereas external quality includes a variety of strategies such as member checking, peer debriefing, and extended stays in the field. Standards based on the research community. Cookart also commented on Sabel realism on the perspective of quality in qualitative research. Sabel realism and philosophical approach is applied to qualitative research means that although we have subjective judgments, there is also a reality outside of individual perspectives. This perspective provides support that the research community has agreed upon standards of judgment for the plausibility, credibility, and relevance of research reports. So the research community looks for the strongest evidence for claims or interpretations and asks all readers to scrutinize the methods according to the community of critical peers. Standards based on impact. Richards in 2000 has written about scholarly writing and qualitative research and identified questions for judging the writing on the basis of impact of the work on the reader. We find these standards quite unusual and taken from the perspective of how a reader might be affected by a qualitative project. These points include the following questions in different parts: substantive contribution, aesthetic merit, reflexivity, impact, and impression of a reality. Standards based on research method. Morse and Richards 2002 discussed the rigor of a qualitative study and how you can ensure that your project is solid. They took a methods orientation and asked that you pose the right questions, ensure the use of appropriate design, make trustworthy data, build solid theory, and verify your findings. Standards based on rigor. Maya 2009 reviewed 15 different sets of rigor for qualitative study advanced by authors. After this extensive analysis, she concluded with her own criteria for what constitutes rigor of a qualitative study. It doesn't mean that you cook up findings in your head. There is a logic to them. You can provide their reasonable explanation for them, and they tell a story. She is involved in her research and how she constructs research, generates data, and represents and writes the report. She is reflexive. She likes to work with images and people stories that help explain in the context of the literature why our world works the way it does. She wants to open people's minds. She revisits what she is trying to do in her research and makes discussions in consultation with interested and supportive others. She writes her research so that its integrity and rigor are apparent. Our own systematic methods. Maya's 2009 self-disclosure of her own personal standards has emboldened us to suggest our own standards. We like that research should be transparent of all relevant research processes and should be systematic or use regular or set data collection and analytical procedures. Beginning researchers need some standards of quality they can apply to their projects. These standards don't need to be rigid and complex. In reviewing qualitative projects of students and classes, we took for the following: include a clear central phenomenon being explored, comment about your reflexivity, gather extensive data of multiple forms, conduct multi-layer data analysis using computer programs to assist you in this process, engage in multiple forms of validity checks, report SEMs and interrelate them, but also consider how the process of research can be enhanced through the use of the specific type of qualitative research design. These designs will take you beyond the basic skills introduced in this book and provide a more advanced approaches to your qualitative project. So what standards should you use? Now you know your perspective that we would recommend using standards to assess your qualitative study. You also know that there is no consensus about standards, but that different perspectives exist in the literature. Choose one of the perspectives that seems most comfortable to you and the significant audience that will receive your qualitative project. Consider also the standards of your qualitative research community. Read through the perspectives we have mentioned and understand the stances taken by the authors. Finally, convey in your written project the standards you're using and why you choose them. In this way, you will be transparent in your writing and systematic about how you have selected specific standards to use. Come to an end, qualitative researchers aren't in agreement about the use of standards of quality or even whether there should be such standards. The question of the importance of standards also leads to diverse perspectives. Standards may limit creativity, may not be suitable for the diverse qualitative community, and may vary depending on one's theoretical orientation, methodology, and philosophy. However, within the practice of research, we find that standards exist in such forms as used by faculty committees, journal editorial boards, review panels for funding, and book prospectuses. In addition, we believe that beginning qualitative researchers are well served by having some standards to apply to their own projects. Beginning researchers can choose from among several perspectives about quality, shaped by common concerns today and based on validity, scholarly committees, the impact of research methods, and rigor. We personally suggest that students use a standard of quality to assess their projects on the basis of transparent processes and rigorous procedures. Thank you very much for watching this presentation.